you started investing before COVID, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could quickly give you a high level. Like in 2018 is when I technically started learning about real estate investing. I was waiting to be commissioned in the Army as an environmental engineering officer. And in the meanwhile, I was working in an environmental engineering remote position. And I picked up a position as a leasing specialist at a large apartment complex. I did that because I thought I'd be interested in real estate. I thought there was literally no barrier to entry, and I met the owners of the property, and they're the ones who inspired me to pursue real estate investing because they were buying large apartment complexes in San Diego in maybe not the perfect condition, renovating them, renting them out, renting, and then refinancing all their money back out. And that was the first time I heard of this concept known as BRRRR. So it really opened my eyes into the possibilities. I never thought I'd own 50 plus rentals or almost $20 million of rentals or anything like that. Um, but I, but it really inspired me. So I started learning on bigger pockets and reading books and that kind of stuff. And when I joined the military, I had a lot of time and training where other people were just doing whatever. I mean, you do whatever you want, but there was a lot of time after training and working out that I could read and just pick up my skills. But the first time I bought real estate, the first property I put under contract was literally days after COVID started. So in March 2020, literally days after, not it started, but days after it was like announced in the country as, hey, this is a serious thing, like around the 20th. I just got back from Spain, literally before they locked down the whole country, which was insane. And and I put my first property under contract after underwriting over 100 investment opportunities in my local market. I literally have to tell myself, Michael, you want to own real estate. You've underwritten 100 plus properties. You've uh, communicated these results, like you're underwriting with other investors in this market, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, that's more thorough than I do," or "Oh yeah, that seems like a solid deal," whatever. But I did not make a single offer up to that point. So what I did was I said, if I'm going to actually be a real estate investor, I'm going to make an offer on the next deal that underwrites. If the next deal that underwrites, I don't make an offer, I'm just done saying I'm going to be a real estate investor. I've been learning, I've been taking action in underwriting, but I will never buy a property without first making an offer. So I made that offer. Everyone else stopped for a minute because of COVID. I made the offer on a 2 unit property for my wife and I had a house hack, and I closed on it in near the end of it took a little longer that time. So at the end of May 2020, I remember it was right before what's the is it Memorial Day?
Mm.
Yeah, right before Memorial Day, because I remember there was a 3 day weekend that my wife and I and my best friend in Alaska that I met up there. We started renovating the unit and got it rented out June 1st. So I closed on it, renovated it within like 5 days, and then had it rented out. And I was already cash flow positive using my VA loan at that time. So that was when I officially started, and that was my first investment. But I like to include the education component as part of it too, because you usually don't. Your first action isn't just buying it. You got to learn a little bit first.
Yeah,
And we all get stuck in that, paralysis phase.
yeah. So if I remember right, because I watched the markets really close, but when all that was happening, they cut rates in April.
Yeah. So I actually was in the threes. So I could have been in the twos if I waited, especially with a VA loan. I could have been in the twos with my credit, but I was in the threes because of at the time when I put it under contract. And I wasn't complaining. Three is phenomenal. But still.
Yeah, that's amazing. In hindsight, you like almost timed it like perfect. Like you pretty much did time it perfect.
And I did. And the crazy part is we did a live and flip with that one. And we I sold it for over twice what it was worth in 2 years. Literally, like 2 years after I sold it for twice what it was worth. We forced appreciation, but the market did half the work for us as well. So the roughly 100K we added in value, the market also added another 100K on that investment. And you want to speak timing the market at that point, I didn't really think it was possible for me to put no money down. I understood the VA loan 0% down, but I thought it was going to cost a lot more. So I had money saved up and the stock market crashed. And I'm still someone who invests passively in index funds. So I
Yeah.
put a bunch of money in the stock market that I thought I needed for real estate, but I didn't. And that was at the perfect time too. So that thing skyrocketed as well. It was timing the market perfectly without even trying to is what happened. It was just all coincidence for that first investment and the stocks associated with that.
Yeah. I think the bigger takeaway too is to not be like afraid. Just take action. You may catch something like you did, or you may not, but you don't get stuff like that unless you're actually doing it.
Right.
And
And Warren Buffett too, right? Like
blood in your
invest. Right, exactly. So that was the concept there too. It's like, okay, everyone else is scared. I see this great opportunity. It makes sense. No one else is making offers because everyone's worried about the world. I'm like, all right. This seems like it felt like no risk, essentially. The numbers made too much sense, and my down payment was virtually my entry cost was virtually nothing.
yeah, no, that's amazing. So what would you say over the next 1, 2, 3 years, your buying style is like? What was your buy box? But just vaguely, like what you're scoping out.
I can tell you exactly what I was looking for. At that time, all I wanted was multifamilies to house hack. That's all I knew at that point. That's all I was looking at. I was in Fairbanks, Alaska with the military.
Mhm.
Very transient market. You have people coming in and out for education, for military, for healthcare. So then there were not as many buyers, but there was a ton of renters. So the rent to price was massively skewed in your favor of ownership to rent out. But not everyone wanted to deal with the work of owning in Alaska, but it seemed like a perfect opportunity, and I was not going to invest out of state at that time. So I was buying and I was looking only at small multifamily, 2 to 4 units for us to live in and rent out as a multifamily house act, balancing between VA loans and FHA loans. But I was also interested in out of state investing, which as soon as I got my property stabilized, the first 2 unit, I started also wholesaling out of state in Huntsville, Alabama, so I can develop that skill set. Wholesaled over a dozen deals in that market and really built up my confidence to be able to execute on certain. It's not the same thing as buying and holding in another market or fixing and flipping out of state, but it gave me the confidence that I could potentially do stuff out of state as well. But the next thing I did was, as soon as that 1 year was up that I lived in that house, there's no official rule for how long you have to live in an owner occupied property, but 1 year is the rough guideline before lenders allow you to essentially take out another owner occupied loan. Literally May of 2021, locked up a 4 unit that we also semi live and flipped. We will not live and flipped. We renovated it through attrition. Whenever tenants would move out, we'd renovate that unit and then rent it out at a rental increase. And I then combined my skill sets of wholesaling and finding deals off market, and combined that with I just started learning about seller financing, creative financing opportunities. That was the
Mhm.
first piece of education I paid for, because I knew as an Army guy, even as an officer, I didn't just have a ton of disposable income, especially because I was investing 70 or 80% of my money before I ever even saw it. Like my wife's full income went towards passively investing in index funds. That was my path to financial freedom, was passively investing in index funds. Every property I bought, or the more I invested, it just brought that timeline closer and closer and closer, until I hit financial freedom officially 2 months after that second acquisition. And I'll get into that real quickly. So, combined seller financing, off market deal finding, and what I was doing with multifamily in my market by creating a huge list of property owners that had a lot of equity in multifamily properties in my market in Fairbanks, Alaska. My wife and I hand wrote almost 500 letters and sent them all out by mail. I went and talked to 25 plus potential sellers who were open, who responded to my letter. And there was one that really stood out. At the time, I didn't have the bandwidth to do a bunch of these deals, where in hindsight, I wish I did, but I had the bandwidth to focus on this 2 unit, but he actually didn't want to sell his 2 unit. He was moving out of state and had 20 rental cabins that he was open to seller financing, but he had a loan in place. He
Mhm.
had a $400,000 loan on an $800,000 appraised property, the 20 rental cabins. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know how to deal with this, but let me figure this out. You can't really seller finance. He could technically seller finance $400,000, but I don't know what to do about his other $400,000. I started learning a little bit about loan assumptions and Subto and all that, but it wasn't like something I was going to be able to do, especially on a commercial loan, based on how heavily they scrutinize those. So
Yeah.
then I thought through a solution, which was, if I take out a new loan, and I talked to local credit unions in that market, if I take out a new loan, they're going to give the seller, right? They're going to pay him out the sale price minus his debts. So if it's $800,000, they're going to pay out the $400,000 debt. He gets the rest of the profit. Well, the seller told me he only needs around $150,000 of that. He wants to, his goal was $150,000 for a down payment on a property he was buying in Denver. And his other goal was just to not have to worry about these rental cabins as he lived out of state. He wanted to keep his duplex to go back and forth from when he visited, didn't um but he didn't really need the rental cabins. He just needed some of the money now, and he wanted to just get financed, or he would be open to financing the rest. But I didn't know what was possible at that time. I didn't know about things that I know now about different strategies. Um, so we structured it in such a way that I got a new commercial loan. They allowed him to provide a 15% seller finance note for the down payment, and I was obligated to do the other 10%. Well, I talked to him and I said, hey, it looks like you could still provide me that 10%, maybe even a little more, and I'll just keep paying you more in monthly interest, right,
Mhm.
on that larger debt. And you can just finance it back to me because that would help me get this deal done because I don't have almost $100,000+ to do what I need to do. And he said, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. I didn't do the paperwork right, but because we already had the 15% down payment through an escrow servicing company, after closing, he wired the funds back to me, and we added that. We recorded well, we didn't record it. We added the note to the escrow servicing company to pay him back, to pay him that additional loan that he did. So essentially, I was able to buy this property between the commercial loan and the seller finance loan, like his first one, the bank allowed, and the second one that we did after closing, with no money out of pocket. I actually got paid a few grand to buy that property. And
Mhm.
that thing at the time was generating me around $3,500 a month, which is even higher now. But the problem was, it doesn't appreciate, right? None of those properties necessarily appreciate. They're not they're not the best wealth generating assets, but they are phenomenal for financial freedom through cash flow. And between the three properties I purchased in that 13-month span, like literally between the first one in May of 2020 to September 2021, 3 acquisitions got me 26 rental units that were generating over $6,500 a month with reserves and all that accounted for. Not with management, self-management for my piece, but then I paid a manager for the rental cabins because that was not my area. And so I was essentially financially free. At that point, I had more money coming in through my passive rental portfolio or my rental portfolio than I spent each and every month between my needs and my wants.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
that was that. And I kind of said, okay, I'm kind of done buying for a little bit. I'm going to stabilize my assets, right? Do further renovations that I need to. I was still in the military. I told the military right after that purchase, hey, my contract is up next July. I'm going to get out of the military. I always forever grateful for our country and all the opportunities it provided. I'm first generation American. I had no reason to join the military. Looking from the outside perspective, I took a massive pay cut as a petroleum engineer to go in and be an environmental engineering officer. There are other benefits of the military, but for me, the reason was just first generation American, always thankful for our country. I wanted to serve our country, not to go to war, but to help protect our soldiers. And that was the role that I did, protect our soldiers and take care of them as much as possible so that they can do the job that they need to as safely as possible. And so I served my time. I did my 4 years, and then I got out and then said, okay, I'm kind of done here, but I don't want to stop working. So I took a government job with the county of San Diego, working similar field, environmental health or specifically hazardous materials. Managed like a $10 million+ budget with 80+ employees. And we decided to sell that first property that we had because it was a VA loan. And it's kind of hard to do multiple VA loans. You can, but it's just, I don't want to get into the nuance of it. It's based on the amount of entitlement you have and all that. But sold that one, took the roughly 200K profit, paid off some debts. I had a HELOC and all that for some renovations, and paid all that off. And then decided to look for a multi-unit in San Diego, which may not make me cash flow, but it was something that was going to build towards my long-term wealth goals. And at the time, I purchased my 3-unit, was under contract a few times. One reason or another, it didn't work out. Got my 3-unit, closed on it. On paper, I was going to make no money on this thing, but there was principal pay down, the debt, the depreciation was massive. The debt pay down was great. It'll appreciate in value, all that good stuff. And now it currently cash flows over $2,000 a month. So between like furnishing it and all that, that was it essentially for me. And then I saw half of one YouTube video from Pace Morby, and he was talking about a strategy that sounded very familiar to something I did. Now I know in his community it's called the Morby method, or a seller carryback post closing, right? That's probably the most logical. Like there's a loan, and then the seller is going to finance you back, but it's going to have to happen after closing. And you have to typically raise the money or use your own funds to close on it and then get paid back by the seller. And that's what I had to do for the rental cabins. I forgot to mention that I had to raise $130,000 within 30 days, which was my first time ever raising money. And I did it between two private money lenders for around a quarter of it or a third of it roughly. And then I sold stocks. I did the HELOC. I like pulled the money out of the HELOC. I took loans out against my stocks. I took loans out against a little bit of crypto that I had. We did 0% credit card finance, 13 different sources to get the 130K to be able to close on it and get paid back by the seller. So that was technically my first time raising money, and it opened my eyes into leverage in that sense. So back to the 3 unit, I saw the video by Pace and he was talking about the Morby method. And I said, oh crap, there's people out there doing the thing that I stumbled through, and they're talking about it so systematically. Like, here's the exact approach you have to do. And I was like, okay, cool. That's something I want to learn more from. I don't really know a ton about Subto or this or that. Like, I've heard a little rumblings, and I knew Pace was going to be at BPCon at that time, Bigger Pockets conference in San Diego where I was at. So I said, you know what, whatever, I'm going to pay to join this mentorship. I signed up. The salesperson tried to close me or whatever. I said, I don't need anything. I know why I'm joining. I don't need anything. And the main thing that I got out of the community was not only, and that changed my entire trajectory. Very simply, that at that point, I was doing so much of the work on my own. I was still self-managing. If I had repairs, I was looking for like some of it. Before that, I was doing myself. I started outsourcing a lot of it to free up my time, because I started realizing that cash flow in a vacuum isn't the number one thing. It's what time freedom is that allowing for me? So I started exchanging cash flow for time freedom. Got a bookkeeper, property management, I started outsourcing all the work that I needed to. I was still getting quotes and all that, but outsourcing all the work that I needed to. And throughout the community, I learned creative finance techniques and all that good stuff. Became a master deal analyzer. Created my own, it's the top creative finance calculator. If you search it on the internet, just type creative financing calculator, it'll be like one of the top ones there. Even ahead of some of my mentors, which is kind of cool. And I really learned, like, okay, I'd rather partner with people. I can raise capital. I can buy real estate investments, not in my local market, because I'm in a community full of people who are go-givers. I can partner with, or not necessarily partner, but I know there's proven operators and proven investors in those markets. So I can trust that if something goes wrong in North Carolina, South Carolina, I know that I can tap into people in that market and pay them, exchange value, whatever, to then have them help me take care of it. So that opened me up to actually investing out of state, to raising money, doing my first official business partnership with my business partner, Adam Catledge, where we created Coast to Coast Vets, our buy and hold business. And yeah, we've scaled to, I had my own personal portfolio of a few million. And then at that point, we scaled $15+ million of real estate in less than 2 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're at this stage now where you're free. You can literally do whatever you want. What is your 5, 10, what's your Everest?
Right. That's a great goal. So, or it's a great question. So, talking to my mentor, the one that I lean on the most, he said, at this point, I said, hey, I'm financially free. I'm basically done. I've got all my needs covered, my wants covered, and I have twice that coming in passive income. He said, you need a 4th level. You need something that is wealth, like legacy and wealth, like have something to leave behind. But more importantly, even if you only use 10,000, 15, 20,000, whatever it is that you need to use a month, the rest that you are accumulating and creating, it's a disservice if I'm not creating towards something large. Because even if I don't need the money for myself, money literally makes things happen. So if there are causes I care about, there are people I care about, if there are things I want to do, money is going to be my ability to do that. Especially if I don't need the money, donate it. Make the money and donate it, because it's a disservice with the knowledge that I have, the skill set that I have, the experience, the momentum that I have, to not keep this growing. So that's part of it, growing my buy and hold business, continually raising capital. But now we're not solely focused on just buying every investment property that makes sense, that underwrites well for us. I'm also helping others do the same. That's a big part of my next this next part of my journey. So I have a free real estate investing community. I'm starting a paid one, some direct mentorship things, or I guess more boot camps. Not really trying to be a mentor over a long period of time, but like help people with specific skill sets, build those skills and the experience to do the thing they want to do. I'll continue raising capital. I'll continue buying real estate, but now we're not going to just buy all of the deals or utilize all the capital. I'm also going to help connect others to deals that maybe we don't need at that time, because we don't need 5 properties a month. We're actually cool with a 1 or 2 a month. That's like a perfect trajectory for us in our business and our team. I don't need to do insane amounts. It's not worth the stress involved. So it's kind of slowing down the buy and hold, helping others get deals and access to capital, helping educate other people, especially not just buying real estate, but understanding how does all of this really play into financial freedom? Because a lot of people, there's no harm in buying great performing assets, but it's how does this all play into your overall goal? And that's my thing with lifestyle design now. So I ended up quitting my job, and I just didn't make financial sense or even time sense anymore. I have a newborn baby. I just like to be able to do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want, whatever, like all the W's, right? I like to do that. And that just means doing a lot more things remotely, primarily from home, taking advantage of experience and opportunities as they arise, and continue growing this thing. Just, I'm not going to stop the momentum. That's basically it.
Yeah. Do you see yourself evolving into like a fund at any point?
Eventually, at some point, it might make sense. I just don't know yet. It doesn't make sense now. With our ability to raise capital and to deploy it, it might be more strategic to do so. But I also don't know if that's going to play into what I'm looking to do. Because if you have a fund and it costs a solid amount of money and you have people's funds invested in you, you have to perform. You have to deploy that capital towards investments. That's the same reason why I don't like wholesaling. I don't like to do things on other people's timelines. I don't like to force things, feel like I have to force something through sometimes. I just want to do the right thing and the things that I enjoy on more so my timeline,
Yeah.
or at least not urgently. Like I don't mind doing things on other people's timelines, but not if it's like urgent, urgent, urgent. I don't like unnecessary urgency. It adds unnecessary stress, and it's not a part. It's not an enjoyable part of life. So I just try to minimize that and understand there are certain stressors and certain things that you continue to scale and overcome overcome problems and create new ones. But I also don't like false sense of urgency problems and undue stress due to that. Like I don't need to do that. So I'm not. That's kind of like a big shift for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. So at this stage, what would you say, like if people are trying to collaborate with you other than your school community, are there any specific resources or things that you're looking for where if someone came to you and they had it, it would be of value, like a good exchange?
Right. So I'll say the best way to connect with me first, and then we'll talk what I'm looking for. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram. So it's just Michael M. Nat, MNAT. Usually Michael M will get you on most of the searches. I'll be at the top of that. You'll see my face. But in there, I have in my bio, I have a link tree which shows various ways for us to collaborate, right? So if you have capital and you want to be a private money lender or private money partner and partner with us or lend on our investments and just have that discussion and see the investment opportunities, there's a form for that. If you want to be part of my free school community called Wealth Through Real Estate, where I show others how I've been able to achieve financial freedom through buying and holding real estate, raising capital, mastering deal analysis, and lending my funds out too. That's the perfect community for you. If you want more hands-on guidance, I have a few other things. Just join the free school community now, see if it's valuable to you, and then decide if you want to pay for anything in the future. Don't just pay, just for the heck of it. I don't need it. You know what I mean? I don't overly need it. So just, pay if it's going to add value to you, or you want to unlock everything at a quicker timeline. Deals. I mean, wholesalers, keep sending me your deals because I'm not generating most amount of deals. I'm taking wholesaler deals and I'm analyzing them and making sure that the deals make financial sense for me. And if it doesn't, I'll help you renegotiate them. So maybe you're not an expert at deal analysis. I can help you renegotiate the deal if it's viable so that we can get the deal done, and maybe I'll buy it or I'll help you sell it to another investor. And then we're going to have some forms coming out soon. It'll all be in my link tree in my bio. If you need access to capital, if you're looking for funding, if you need more deals, I'll be a resource, not just for the education for deal analysis, creative finance, those kinds of things. But also like actually helping provide the deals and capital as well. So lots of ways to work with me, but it's all focused around buying and holding real estate, lending and capital raising, and then just deal analysis primarily.